personally, I would like to see Benura Fernando, the left arm in there.
CSK were far too good for KKR. I think this might be on attack line.
Sri Lanka will be one of the teams they are eyeing because they know that if they are able to upset a full nation, then their profile goes up.
సోదరు రసట మంచి కొమే క్యూమెన్
Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to Around the Wickets on ThePapare.com. And the most awaited T20 World Cup is here right now with us. And Sri Lanka will play their first game against Namibia on the 18th. And to talk about that, the entire first round of the World Cup, IPL which just ended, and the Bangladesh under 19s tour to Sri Lanka. I have two very special guests with me, as usual. Uh, Former international cricketer Jehan Mubarak and our very own Estelle Vasudevan Sharmeegan Sridheran. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Jehan, let's. I'll get to you first with a very quick question. Just try and explain us if there is any significant difference in playing against an associate nation. You played in World Cups. You've played in 2007. We remember the 260 against Kenya. You played a key role in that game, and having that kind of experience, just tell us: is there any significant difference in playing with those associate nations?
Yeah, it's it's a lot easier to go in with a little less pressure as a team and individually, uh, because you know that their team, the opponents revolve around a few key players, like one or two key bowlers and one or two key batsmen. And if you get those guys out, if you are able to take those bowlers out of the game, the difficult periods in that game are shorter than playing against a higher ranked team. So it's a nice way to ease yourself into a tournament, and I think it's something that will help Sri Lanka get into this T20 World Cup by having a few easy games. We're still figuring out our combinations. I think these associate games or the qualification games will actually help us in the main tournament.
Well, I have to disclaim this by saying associate nations, or by telling that these games are a little less easy for Sri Lanka. We are not putting down any team here, or we are not going to take anyone. We cannot afford to take anyone to as an easy target. And ST, coming to you, I know you've been working closely with a lot of information on the associate nation, which the viewers of the show have no access or aren't really familiar with. Just try and explain us your thoughts on the three nations Sri Lanka are about to play in the first round: the islands, Namibia, and of course Netherlands.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's not going to be, they're not going to be pushovers. I think Sri Lanka is still clear favorites to go through at the top of Group A, but we have to also keep in mind that Sri Lanka has not been playing well in the recent past. They've had a few struggles against top teams. Very recently, they lost 3-0 to South Africa. So it's not going to be easy for Sri Lanka, but at the same time, as Jehan mentioned, there may be a few areas that Sri Lanka can exploit and can kind of work their way into the tournament with these three games. In terms of the three teams, I think all three teams have shown some strength in the qualification rounds. I think particularly Namibia has been one of the teams that is bringing a lot of momentum into this tournament. Um, we haven't seen much of them. It's their first T20 World Cup as well. But I expect all three teams to really give Sri Lanka a challenge, particularly because there may be a bit of familiarity with the types of tracks that are on offer in terms of, in Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, we are going to have, if the IPL is anything to go by, we're going to have some slow and low tracks. So we see that a lot in associate cricket as well. Of course, Ireland is a full member, but the other two teams would be familiar with it, and a lot of them, I know the Dutch team, there are a lot of bowlers who play English county cricket, so they have a bit of experience behind them, and of course, they are, I think, if you think about it, for all three teams, their main target, of course, would be qualifying, but Sri Lanka will be one of the teams they're eyeing because they know that if they are able to upset a full nation, then their profile goes up as well. So I think all three teams will be putting a lot of effort into the games. Um, from the three, I think Ireland looks to be the strongest at the moment because uh, Netherlands hasn't had too many games leading up, but yesterday they had a good warm-up game against New Zealand. Namibia has had good momentum coming into the tournament, but they haven't had too many games against top nations. So I think Ireland should be the one to watch out for. They've got guys like Paul Sterling, particularly. I think on the tracks that are on offer, that opening slot with top order is going to be very important, and getting runs in the half is going to be very important. So Ireland is one team that has a proven guy who can really make a lot of runs in the top order. So all three, I think, will be challenging, but Sri Lanka will be able.
All right. I'm sure that information will be valuable for all our viewers who hasn't had much of an exposure towards the associate nations. And again, Jan, we know that Sri Lankan batting unit has a lot of struggles. We don't have a certain numbers, like number three is still not a finalized position. We don't have a proper batsman in that area. But some another aspect of the game that was not discussed much is the bowling unit, Jan. So I think we spoke a lot about the batting unit even in the last episode. But what do you think will be Sri Lanka's bowling unit come the first game? Who do you think will be in that bowling battery?
Well, the bowling unit has been doing well, even in the games that we've lost. The bowling has kept the team in the game. Lahiru Kumara had a good outing against Oman, a couple of good outings. And it's for me, it's between Lahiru Kumara and Dushmantha Chameera, who is coming back from the IPL. He hasn't played a lot of cricket, but he's got the experience. So I would see Dushmantha coming in there. And of course, Wanindu Hasaranga. I think with Vanindu coming in there, it gives a lot of depth and variety to our bowling. Mahesh Tikshana will play. The only position that I would have in doubt is the final bowler's position, whether we go with Akila Dhananjaya or another spinner in Dhananjaya De Silva, who's an all-rounder, or we go with Binura Fernando. Uh, or maybe the option of playing both Lahiru Kumar and Dushmantha Chameera. So that final bowling position is the only toss-up. Personally, I would like to see Binura Fernando, the left arm, in there. But the other slots, Vanindu Hasaranga, Dushmantha Chameera, Mahesh Tikshana, to fill those slots up. And of course, Dashun Chanaka and Chamika Karunaratna are there as the bowlers.
Well, that's exactly that spot which I wanted to pick your brain from, Jan. If it is going to be Lair Kumar or Binura Fernando. So, Jan likes Binura Fernando to be in that 11. So, moving on, SC, I just touched about the batting in the previous question. So, it has been a huge discussion that who is going to be that top order for Sri Lanka. Is it going to be Pathum Nissanka or Shandimal who is opening? So, seems like it's going to be Pathum Nissanka from the way he performed in the practice game. So, it will be Kusal Pereira with Pathum. So does that mean Chandimal at number three? Just and also the batting that is going to follow after that. What do you think will make up Sri Lanka's batting lineup this week?
I think looking at the lead up to the tournament, the two games against Oman and then the two practice games, it really looks like Patrick Nisaka will be the one who will open alongside Kusal Janik. So then that number three spot opens up again. Of course, Bhanuka Rajpaksha was the guy who they were keeping in number three, but seems like he has moved down the order. Really, I think Sri Lanka are really stuck for choices there because none of the players who they have tried have been able to really show some form. I think Charit Asalanka was someone who did um, do well against India, but then didn't have a good series against South Africa. Chandimal, I think, has done uh, what's been asked of him. Asked of him, he's tried to do. He's tried to go after the big runs when he's open the batting. To me, it looks like they might play somebody else in number three. It's a toss-up. I think maybe Dhananjay De Silva might get the nod particularly if they want to balance out the bowling lineup and they're playing only two spinners. So I think that may depend on, like Jehan mentioned, if they want to give Akila Dhananjaya uh, the number three spinner spot, or they want to play a pace bowler, because we've got two pace bowling all rounders in the team. So Sri Lanka might try to go give an extra option with the spin bowling department in playing Dhananjaya De Silva. But I think it's going to be really tough because nobody has really, I mean, if you look at the lineup, nobody has really shown too much form. So these three games might be, make or break for somebody whether they are going to play the rest of the tournament to qualify or not. Overall, I think it's going to be a very important spot because, as I mentioned before, the pitchers are going to get slower if we look at the IPL. If they're going to act in a similar way, then those first 6 overs are going to be really important. So when you have guys who can't really go after the bowling early on, that might be a problem for Sri Lanka. So I really don't know who they'll pick, but I have a feeling that they might go for the extra bowling option with Dhananjay De Silva coming in.
Well, well, speaking of Dhananjay De Silva, and if excuse me if I am really gonna put you in trouble, but what do you think De Silva's role will be in this World Cup? Being the vice captain, where do you see him fitting in? Because I'm not a fan of going by the extra bowler, choosing a batsman for because he can afford a little bit of over. But I know Dhananjay De Silva is more than just that part-time bowler. He could be really valuable in shorter format. So where do you see Dhananjay De Silva fitting in?
I think that's a question that Sri Lanka cricket themselves are unsure of. Um, is Dhananjaya De Silva a top order batsman who bowls a bit of off spin? And that changes, or is he a off spinner who can bat a little bit? I think Sri Lanka cricket themselves are unsure. In Test cricket, he plays as a genuine batsman sometimes he plays as an all rounder. And even in T20 cricket, is he the anchor who's going to hold the innings together and then bowl some off spin overs? But we don't have another main off spin option apart from Akila Dhananjaya, and also someone who can bowl in the power play. So maybe Dhananjaya De Silva is an option there, but I would like to have a finger spinning, like a orthodox spinning option in there. So whether it is Dhananjaya, maybe Charita Salanka who bowls a bit of off spin, it depends on how they see. But the person who comes in there, I would look at him more from a bowling point of view. So if I bring Dhananjay into the team, it would have to be because I see him a bowling role for him, not so much of a batting role. If Dhananjay is bowling well and the wicket is taking spin and helps the slower bowlers, I would perhaps bring Dhananjay in ahead of Akila Dhananjaya, or maybe even look at the option of playing Charita Salanka at number 3.
Well, that's interesting thoughts from Jehan Mubarak. So let's move on to the Grand Gala of cricket, which has ended at in UAE, the IPL. Chennai Super Kings won their fourth IPL title and defeating KKR in the finals. So just tell me, Jan, I'm sure you've watched my MS Dhoni grow from 2007 right across how we grew. So from being a team who were struggling in the previous season to championship, what do you think is Dhoni's impact? What do you think is Chennai Super Kings impact in IPL?
Um, This year, I think their batting click. They got runs on the board. They got the leading two run scorers are from Chennai, and on low scoring wickets, having runs on the board with the bowling attack that they had, I think that was the key to their season this year. Dhoni has years of experience, and even though they had a poor season last year, and he said it at the end of last season that the team is good, the team is young, that we are rebuilding the CSK brand, and
where the richest offerings of nature are turned into a finer form through pure craftsmanship. And I'm not talking about the sapphire on my ring.
Lanka tiles, designed for you, desired by the world.
yeah, he batted brilliantly. One of the stars of the tournament. Shardul Thakur came in, bowled well, and they've got the experience of Dhoni, Raidu, Moeen Ali, all chipping in there, Dwayne Bravo. So that the balance of the team looked so much better. They were playing with a lot of confidence, and they had the right people in the right positions. They didn't have too many injury concerns, and the unit really played well. And they from the beginning of the tournament, they seemed to be the team to beat.
Well, you mentioned CSK getting runs on board early on, and I think, do you think KKR inserting them to bat first, knowing how good they were with the bat in the tournament, do you think inviting them to bat first was a bad option from KKR?
Yeah, personally, if I was KKR, I would have batted first because KKR they struggle with the batting depth. Their bowling, they have a lot of options, variations. Uh, they have got bulk of their runs with the top order, and they have been low order struggles, especially without Andre Russell. So I felt that putting CSK in and then having to chase would have been harder rather than always in a final. I feel runs on the board, build some scoreboard pressure, give something for your bowlers to work with would have been my option. But it's T20 cricket. They went with what they believed in. It didn't work out. CSK were far too good for KKR.
CSK were far too good for KKR. I think this might be on our tagline. And ST, coming on to you, where do you think KKR lost their plot? And where do you think they lost the game exactly? I think they got a good start from Shubman Gill and Venkatesh Iyer, but still they managed somehow to manage bundle down to 165. So what do you think was KKR's downfall?
Yeah, I think throughout the tournament, they've had trouble in that middle order. Uh, Captain on Morgan, no runs throughout the tournament. They've really actually depended a lot on their bowling options. They have a really fantastic bowling unit with Chakravarti, Narayan, Ferguson all coming good during those in that Dubai leg of the tournament. Um, Overall, the batting is what spared them. So in the final, basically after Shubman Gill and Venkatesh Iyer gave them such a great start, nobody else did anything with the bat. Shakib Al Hassan zero, Owen Morgan no runs, nothing from Dinesh Karthik. So that was the area I think throughout the tournament that they struggled, and of course it came back to haunt them once again in the final when, like Jehan said, you've got runs on the board. There's always going to be pressure. So once Chennai was able to get to that 190 run mark, it was always going to be difficult for KKR, particularly knowing that they've had problems in that middle order. So nobody really in that middle order has clicked even in the games that they've been winning. So that is the area I think still 190 was chaseable for them, but it's just that that middle order was completely out of form, not getting runs, no Andre Russell. I think that was a massive blow for them. So yeah, it's definitely. I won't say they're unlucky because Chennai looked like the team to beat from the first half of the tournament. So deserved win for Chennai, but KKR did really well to come up to the final after a terrible first half of the tournament.
Well, so that's about the IPL, the deserving win for CSK, and we move on to the youth under 19. I mean, Sri Lanka under 19 versus Bangladesh under 19, two happening in Dambulla. So, Jan, I'm sure you've been watching the games closely, because you're, I mean, your pupils, I could call, are playing in there. Sadish Rajapaksha had a good game, and of course, Pawan Patiraja. Specifically, I want to talk about Pawan Patiraja because I remember Pawan Patiraja scoring a fighting half century. I think that was his first few games in the season again for Trinity First 11, and then I remember him scoring that fighting half century at Royal Reed Avenue against the Royalists, and from there on to this knock of 67 against Bangladesh. I mean, let me first tell you the scores of what happened in the game. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka batted first and scored 228. It was a tough track to play on, and they managed to win the game, bundling Bangladesh out for 186. and Pawan Patiraja for 67 and Shrevin Matthews for the highlight. So six debutants for Sri Lanka, and Pawan Patiraja was one among them. And speak about that now. Jan, how good was that?
Uh, so I've seen a lot of these boys playing against Royal, and we had a second 11 game while we were playing the first 11 in Kandy. This is in 2019. Pawan Patiraja got a double hundred against us in the second 11 at home, and he had batted. I had didn't see the game, but he had batted for about 4 sessions, 5 sessions. I think Trinity batted. And when we played against Trinity this year as well, Pawan has a lot of staying power. He has the ability to absorb pressure and just occupy the crease. And on a wicket like this, it seemed what was required. It was difficult for us to assess the conditions on screen because it seemed a bit slow, and we sometimes felt that Sri Lanka batsmen were not scoring quickly enough, or that might not have enough runs on the board. But it turned out to be a good score because, again, I think we assessed the conditions well, better than we did at home. I thought we didn't have enough runs on the board initially, but obviously the batsmen assessed the conditions well, took it deep, and then they knew their role. So Pawan knew what his role in the team was to take it deep, bring the boundary hitters into the game. Yasiru Rodrigo came in at the end. So that overall team plan, the structure of the innings, I think that was really good, and it was a mature innings from Pawan. And that's what you want to see. Okay, apart from the result of the game where we win, you want to see how the young players handle different situations, how they handle pressure. Six debutants, as you say, everyone is looking at this as an opportunity to impress. So apart from the result, it's how you score your runs, what you showcase out there. And I think what we saw there was very good.
Well, see, we know that Sri Lanka has been struggling to produce spinners, good off spinners in the team, and especially, as I mentioned, off spinners. So how good was Trevin Matthews, a debutant again from St. Anthony's College, can be picking up 4 wickets. And in a pressure game like this, you didn't have master defect. 228 was gettable score. And how good was his bowling? ST, just talk about a bit of Trevin Matthews.
Yeah, I think he bowled with a lot of discipline. That was the important part. As Jahan mentioned, all of these guys are kind of auditioning for an opportunity to get into that World Cup team. So obviously there's a lot of expectation from each one, and a lot of pressure also on them. But that was one key aspect to his success, was that he bowled with discipline and he used the conditions which were helpful to his best advantage. I think that was the key to his success. Off spinners, of course, we used to produce a lot of them. Now, of course, we don't have too many at that top level. So I think I'm interested to see how he goes, because Bangladesh, of course, are defending world champions. So they would also want to really put up a good fight in the next game. So I'm excited to see how he goes throughout the tournament, because now, since they've had a look at him, we should be able to see how their game plans change, and how Matthews himself is able to adjust to that and adapt to what's in front of him.
Well, Jan, let's have a quick word about Dunit Velalage and his captaincy. He made his debut as the captain in that game, and of course won the match. And specifically, I was really impressed with the way he used the bowlers, especially bringing in someone like Chavon Daniel and part timers in that factor. I mean, that mentions how well he knows his game and his players. So I'm sure you've seen enough of Dunit Velalage over the years. Just give us a thought on it.
Yeah, he's easily the most experienced cricketer of that lot. He's played a lot of under 19 cricket, a lot of school cricket, and he's also played Premier cricket. And that experience shows. Of course, he's got two teammates in Shevon Daniel and Sadish Jayawardena. So he knows what they are capable of. He knows when to bring the guys in. He knows when to bring himself on. And that planning, I think the way he handled that bowling unit was very good. Even when he was batting, um, how he knew what his role was, and he's not afraid to take risks when needed. and that rubs off on the team as well. When you have a strong captain he has the respect of the team. I think that is very important because he's been there, his experience, he reads the game well. Because he has the respect of the team, everybody responds to him very well. So I think we've got a good leader in Dunit Velalage. He's a genuine all-rounder. He can bat, bowl, and hopefully we will see him grow into a proper leadership person. It's something that we need to identify along with talent at junior level, also to identify leadership, because that is something that is very much needed once you come into Sri Lanka A team or the national team, to identify leaders at a young age.
Well, that brings us to the end of a very interesting episode, and it was really nice to have you both and very important and enlightening information shared today. Thank you, Jehan. Thank you, ST, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So that's a wrap here on today's episode of Around the Wickets. And as we mentioned earlier, Sri Lanka will play their first game against Namibia on the 18th, and of course, followed by Ireland and Netherlands on the 22nd and 20th and 22nd. So while we ensure you exclusive coverage from UAE, our correspondent, our cricket head Damit Veerasinghe is in the UAE covering all the games for you via papare.com. So stay tuned to papare.com for all World Cup content, and we'll see you with another interesting episode next week. So it's me, Sharmeegan Sridheran, signing off for Around the Week.
Stay on the ball with the Papare Sports News Alerts. Don't miss out on what's happening in the world of sport. Type sports and send to 678 to register. 30 rupees per month. Conditions apply.